Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Fantasy NBA Tonight, the live reaction show here at Hoop Ball. I'm Dan Besbris, and I'm joined, of course, on this Wednesday evening by Jordan Smith. We are filling in for Vince, giving him an evening off from podcasting. And, of course, Vince was kind enough, Jordan, to leave us with an 11-game Wednesday. But before we dig into it, I don't get to talk to you much other than these weekly get-togethers. So what's going on? How you been? Outside of election stuff.
Hey, just dealing with a crazy day in the market. Trying to keep my job and make a little money for the company. We'll see if that actually ends up happening. Who knows? It's going to be an absolute, absolute up and down show for the next few months. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. So you work with the stock market. You handle analysis and so forth. And I know, without again getting into too much of what the actual politics mean, you had kind of an interesting last 24 hours to deal with, because I know as I was watching the coverage last night of the actual presidential election, the Dow futures, I think, dropped as far as like 800 points in. I didn't even know that there was trading that occurred at whatever it was, like 10 p.m. Pacific time. And then by the late morning today, everything had sort of evened itself out. Is that how much hair do people lose when something like that happens? I have to assume pretty much all of it.
A lot. There was a ton of action last night, and there's going to be a ton of action going forward. So there was significant moves all around the place, and people were still covering basketball last night. There's still basketball to be talked about. So that's a completely different market, and one I definitely prefer to talk about. Now that
a little lighter, just a little lighter on. I know that I was sitting around and I was hearing about this Dow stuff, and I was thinking about trying to pull some of my money out, and then cooler heads prevailed, and I ended up basically just doing nothing. And obviously, I'm glad I did. Because as my late grandfather always used to say, quote, "You're young, it'll come back even if it falls." So that's the lesson that I've been abiding by. And let's hope that that's the case for some NBA players as well. We'll dig in now. We've already got some pre-show questions coming in. But to Alan, Movie Dude, F. Cruz, and Miguel, I'm telling you, we will get to your questions shortly. I just want to make a little bit of headway here into some of the games that have actually already gone final, which is about 70% of them at this point, I think. Maybe even a tiny bit more since the show started. I think that Rockets-Spurs game just hit its final horn. But Utah and Charlotte, and Jordan, I'd love to actually spend a bunch of time tonight talking about how much I like the Charlotte Hornets. This was a team that I started watching a bit more last year, just kind of from a fan standpoint. But, they look really good with Michael Kidd-Gilchrist in there playing some hard-nosed D. They stuck him on Gordon Hayward, who had a big ball game, but he kind of made him work for it, forced some turnovers. This Charlotte team actually looks pretty well-rounded, and they got another nice win tonight.
Yeah, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, I loved him going into last year. I mean, when you got a guy that has that athleticism, that length, and he's going to be that hard of a worker, things are going to turn out all right in the end, and he's looked great.
Some of the scores from this ball game: Kemba Walker had a big ball game, 21, 5, 6, and 4 steals. Marvin Williams exploded for 5 threes tonight. Frank the Tank, 13 points off the bench in just 20 minutes. Spencer Hawes, Marco Bellinelli, Cody Zeller, all in double figures. MKG, the aforementioned defensive specialist, had only 2 points against a good defensive team, of course, the Utah Jazz, but he made up for it with 9 rebounds, 2 steals, and a block, and he made both of his free throws. So he's kind of still finding a way to contribute even on an off night. The guys that just cracked double figures, that's obviously more of a flash in the pan, more of a sign of how well-rounded Charlotte is, and the fact that they do have some decent depth this year. Over on the Utah side, Gordon Hayward has settled in quickly. George Hill was still out. You got a nice game from Derek Favors as he gets back up to his normal workload. Rudy Gobert, Rodney Hood, and Trey Lyles just did sneak into double figures. But Jordan, not much in the way of fantasy storylines in this ballgame, because no one really unexpected played big minutes.
Yeah, the big thing for me that keeps sticking out is Rodney Hood continues to see a good amount of shot attempts, even with Derek Favors ramping his workload up to up to a full load now. And from last year when Rodney Hood and Gordon Hayward shared the court together, Rodney Hood's efficiency went up across the board. So even if those field goal attempts start to creep back down a little bit more, he's going to get some gains in other places. And I think if you were trying to sell high on him, I don't think it's necessarily selling high. I think you're selling for about what he'll be worth, because he's been rock solid.
Move along to the next game on the docket. Philadelphia and Indiana. That one went into overtime. Robert Covington, things starting to level off a little bit for Rocco. He didn't have the big sort of a peripheral stat game that people are looking for. 1 steal and 1 block, but he did hit 5 threes, and for the second game in a row, he's made half his shots or more. And tonight, led the team in field goal attempts with Joel Embiid taking a rest day. And of course, we do have to mention Jared Bayless, Ben Simmons, Nerlens Noel, all still out for the 76ers. But regardless, Dario Saric had a double-double. He had a couple of blocks and a couple of threes in this one. When you go into overtime and you score 115 points, you're going to get a few guys with decent fantasy games. But I'll tell you, Jordan, it had to be nice to see Covington and Saric finally put together a couple of decent ball games.
Yeah, Covington's been a real downer this year, and his field goal attempts have been in the single digits for almost every single game, but minus the last 2. And Embiid is last I checked is rocking around a 40% usage rate. He was even higher than Russell Westbrook, and that's going to be a really big deal going forward. I love the Covington's getting back on track right now, but I can't really trust it because Nerlens is going to be back eventually. Embiid's going to continue to dominate the ball so much, and Ben Simmons is going to return in January or so.
Yeah, for now, I've got Covington worth holding in a 10-team league, probably, I would say definitely worth holding in a 12-team league, and then certainly you want to get him in there and get him going in anything bigger than that. But there is the inconsistency, and when he gets going, you want to get him into your lineup in kind of that C.J. Miles type shooters that take most of their attempts from the outside. They tend to be a little bit streaky, and that's what we're looking at right now. Over on the other side, C.J. Miles was in double figures, actually, again for the Pacers, but Jeff Teague got it going tonight. So everybody that's been kind of waiting patiently on him so far this year, they were rewarded handsomely as Teague made 63% of his shots. He had 9 out of 10 free throw. I mean, this was just all around a big, big game. 30 points, 9 assists, 2 rebounds, 2 steals, a block, a 3. Again, 90% from the foul line. This might be, dare I say, this may be his best line of the season for the rest of the year, too. This is just the kind of game that you want if you're thinking about trying to sell on Jeff Teague. Or I think you'd probably be okay, Jordan, just kind of hanging on and knowing that he's going to settle into a number between where he started the year and this ball game.
Yeah, that sounds about right to me. He's sitting at 109 overall in 9-cat this year. He'll be better than that. He'll be better than what he has been so far this year. But he's going to be inconsistent because they have so many mouths to feed there, even with running a tight rotation. But he is a starting point guard. He's going to handle the ball a lot. I don't think he's any better than, like, say, the 70th, 65th best player or something like that. But he'll be better than what he has. But he ain't going to be this good.
Al Jefferson at 18-6 and a couple of steals in 20 minutes. Is this a guy that you're starting to pay attention to in any way, or was this just a night where Big Al kind of got the shot going and maybe that'll happen again in a couple of weeks?
He played 20 minhave so I can always see an argument for streaming him on any given night, but he's not going to play. He'll have some nice lines because he's just going to absolutely punk backup guys scoring the ball, but over with only 20 minutes a game, he's not going to really block that many shots anymore. He's getting pretty old, and his rebounding has declined every single year. So I'd be leaving him on the waiver wire, but if I ever need a center on any given night, I'll be going and trying to scrounge him up.
In the battle for New York, round 1 goes to the Knicks in pretty easy cruising order too. Kristaps Porzingis had a very nice ball game. Carmelo Anthony, slow start, but picked it up in the second half. Those two guys and Courtney Lee were the only Knicks to play more than 30 minutes in that ball game. Nobody on the Brooklyn Nets played more than 30 minutes. Joe Harris actually led Brooklyn at 29 minutes. It was a weird game once again. If you're trying to figure out where the value lies in Brooklyn, And in this one, Brooke Lopez played okay, and Justin Hamilton got it going. But again, in only 22 minutes. So, obviously in deeper leagues, he's definitely worth owning. But 10, 12 teams, you're kind of, it's a little iffy there because you just don't know what you're getting on a nightly basis.
Yeah, our man, the patron saint, Aaron Bruschi, has been pumping Justin Hamilton, and while it's hard for me to get on board with him right now, I like he's usable right now is the thing, and I think Bruschi's right. He's going to be a guy that is going to be owned later in the season. There's going to be a shutdown chance for Brooke Lopez at some point. There's going to be a trade chance for Brooke Lopez at some point. So if Justin Hamilton is going to continue to produce on any level, like he should be owned in most deep leagues, and it makes for a pretty good stash candidate in my opinion.
Yeah, that does make more sense. I mean, you just have to be aware that there are going to be decent nights and there are going to be quieter nights along the way.
With any guy like that, you're going to have to eat some pretty bad lines, but and hope for some good ones here and there. So you can't have too many of those guys on your team for sure.
I'm not seeing any obvious takeaways on the New York side. I mean, when you got Porzingis and Carmelo as really the two guys doing things of note, Brandon Jennings did have 11 assists in that ball game. In what tonight in a blowout ended up as basically a timeshare with Derrick Rose. That's something to me that could become an issue as the season goes on. It does seem like for now they really want to try to push Rose down everybody's throat, but Brandon Jennings between those two guys is the better distributing point guard. Is that something to think about as we get maybe a little closer to the new year?
It could be. Unfortunately, nothing ever goes right in New York. With them already talking about
True.
wanting to run more things out of the triangle, neither of those guys are really suited to do that in the first place. It's just a mess. And if I can stay as far away from New York players as I can, I mean that's my true opinion.
Yep, I don't have the soundboard booted up, but this would be a moment where Vince would love for me to play the someone else's headache stamp sound effect. The New York Knicks, they were the most boring team to watch, I thought, last year. They're a little bit more interesting this season. I'll give them that, but just not a fun place to search for fantasy value. We have two more early games to talk about, and then we'll break for a couple of chat room questions. Minnesota, Orlando, the Timberwolves got off to a very quick start in this ball game and never really looked back. Zach LaVine had 37 points. That's what you call a whopper. Andrew Wiggins, 29. Karl Anthony Towns had 20. Gorgie Jang, a beautiful, well-rounded line, just the reason that you drafted him in the late early rounds, early middle. For the second game in a row, though, Jordan, Tyus Jones picked up most of the point guard minutes.
Yeah, I'm actually a big Chris Dunn fan, and I had him in every single league because I thought he played big bench minutes. But after Thibodeau got a look at him in the starting lineup, he didn't look like what he sees, and it's kind of hard to blame him. Chris Dunn's a little wild. He has a propensity to turn the ball over a decent amount. He isn't exactly shooting it well. And I think Tyus Jones just is giving them a better offensive option right now because that's what they want to run with. And if that's the case, then cut bait on Chris Dunn for the moment. I think we'll see more him later. But Tyus Jones, I think should be picked up until we hear something about Ricky Rubio coming back, which should be soon. But he's more of a speculative ad.
Yeah, I completely agree. And then, of course, on the other side of that ball game, you got the dumpster fire in Orlando. I mean, is there any team in the league with more misplaced talent than the Orlando Magic? I mean, this is just one of the strange. I can't think of a team in the NBA that's built this awkwardly, where they're just so top heavy and no one's playing the right position. And poor Frank Vogel's trying to make it work, but I mean, you can only cram a square peg through a round hole so many times.
It's a mess, and Serge Ibaka has just not looked. I mean, this is now a 3-year trend of his decline, and 11 points and 2 rebounds. I mean, come on, he's been absolutely brutal so far, and I don't see it getting any better.
Just horrible. Yeah, he's been awful. My Tuesday guest talked to Rusty Peddle of Number Fire. He was talking about the fact that Serge Ibaka is actually playing so poorly right now that even though he's probably going to underperform his ADP, he's actually a buy low target. And as a market guy, I have to imagine that you probably see the sense in what Rusty was mentioning, because you could now probably buy Ibaka for like a 9th or 10th round pick. And even if you got 7th round value out of him, that's still a good deal.
Yeah, I can see some kind of argument for that. I mean, I just pulled up his year by year here, and last year he was Last year was 61st overall. He's been 97 so far this year. Years before that, 18, 10, 10, 13. I mean, the guy's got crazy upside because he can block 2.5 shots a game and grab eight boards, but it just has not happened for him in what's going on 2.5 years. So I think he's definitely a buy low, but you got to know what you're buying. You're buying a more or less a glorified block specialist.
Yeah, you're not spending a 6th or 7th round pick and hope that you get a 3rd round value. You're going to try to spend less and hope for a 6th or 7th round value. So again, you dial back the expectations, you sort of ratchet everything down 2 or 3 rounds, and then all of a sudden you're saying, okay, you Billy Bean this thing, and you try to spin it for a little bit of a value.
Another interesting note from this game, I'm a math guy. I like to think Nikola Vucevic 30 minutes and Bismack Biyombo 26. That means that those guys, I didn't see any of this game, but that means those guys had to share some of the court together.
I don't even know how that really works, but this is what they assembled there for whatever reason. They signed Biyombo and then traded for Ibaka. They didn't have to do this, and they already had Aaron Gordon, who played 30 minutes and had but 7 points and 4 rebounds. It's just, it doesn't fit. Evan Fournier is sort of the only guy on that team that fits. He's the guy that makes sense around some of the other pieces, but man, that is a mess, and you're starting to see why Scott Skiles ran for the hills.
This is why I'm selling Aaron Gordon for the rest of the year too, because when they go to these bigger lineups, he's not going to get any rebounds. They're all going to get sucked up by Biyombo and Vucevic, and that's where a lot of Gordon's value comes from. And he doesn't shoot it well, so
definitely a team to reassess if or when, I assume when, somebody gets moved on that roster. Boston played a bad game tonight. This no way around it. A Wizards team that had been struggling so far this year dealt with an injury to Bradley Beal, who played, I think, only about 12 minutes tonight before he was finished for the evening. Got a huge, and I mean massive, game from Otto Porter, who in a rare twist, and thank you to Basketball Monster for this little nugget, actually outperformed the league average in every single statistical category from a fantasy standpoint. He scored 34 points, 3 3-pointers, 14 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals, 3 blocks, shot 74% from the field on the night, made all 3 of his free throws, and did not turn the ball over. That's basically number 1 overall pick type numbers. But of course, that's not going to hold. We're talking about Otto Porter here, but boy, I think it's safe to say that buying low on Porter is gone now, and the Kelly Oubre story is shelved for the next little bit. Oubre played 3 minutes tonight, and rightfully so, because Otto Porter looked like the best player in the world.
Yeah, he was fantastic, and I think he got to take real advantage of the fact that Jay Crowder was out of this matchup, because they have guys like Jonas Jerebko trying to match up with them, Kelly Olynyk trying to match up with them at some points. Poor Jaylen Brown. Got to hand it to him. Otto Porter was just on fire tonight.
Yeah, he was a monster. The story, of course, from the injury standpoint, and this will be the note from that Washington game, Bradley Beal went down with what we're being told is a hamstring injury. They do not know the severity of it, but it'll be tested over the next day or two. I am of the opinion, and Jordan, feel free to disagree with me on this one. Of course, what I'm saying is definitely not gospel, that I'm not racing out to pick up Marcus Thornton because he's a short-term ad regardless of how bad the Beal injury was. From what I'm reading and what I saw, they don't think that it's too awful, but hamstring injuries do linger a little bit. So to me, best case scenario, if you scoop up Marcus Thornton, you're looking at maybe 3 weeks of value, and more than likely, you're probably looking more like a week, week and a half. So I'm not that excited to go get him. But if word comes out that Beal is going to miss a month, then yeah, I think you got to go get Marcus Thornton almost immediately because he soaked up pretty much every Beal minute tonight, played 34, and had 16 points and 3 steals among, frankly, a pretty decent stat line.
Yeah, he was solid, and I think the thing to point out is none of us are big Marcus Thornton fans. We've seen that guy play before, and he's not particularly anything more than a 3-point shooter and a bench scorer. But John Wall is incredibly good at getting people wide open 3-pointers, and Marcus Thornton is incredibly generous about how often he likes to shoot 3-pointers. So if you need 3-pointers and Bradley Beal's going to be out, like he's going to be a great short-term ad for that. But he's going to put up some offers in there as well.
Yeah, very true. And so I think to me, if you're in a relatively competitive league where you need that roster spot, I wouldn't go get him quickly. If you're in a league where you can do a little bit of streaming, not a terrible idea to go grab him because you're probably going to get at least a game. If you're in a weekly lineup, then I'd say you probably think about waiting as well because you don't know what kind of value Thornton would have next week. Let's turn our attention over to the chat room because we knocked out the early games. That was 5 out of the 11 that actually started at 7 o'clock Eastern time tonight. And we do have a handful of questions that came in throughout this first 20 minutes or so of our program, and we'll start at the top and work our way through. Alan Fang says, Sean Kilpatrick or Justin Hamilton in a 12-team head-to-head points league. I'm assuming that's basically just weigh it out. Which player do you like better?
Tough decision. I could take either. Sean Kilpatrick has been more consistent lately, and he's getting good burn. So I'd probably take him right now. Justin Hamilton, we've already talked about. I think he's the better long-term ad because we just have no idea how long the Sean Kilpatrick experiment's going to last.
Yeah, in a points league, I'm leaning Kilpatrick on this one, just because you have a pretty good idea that he's going to hoist up 9 to 12 shots on a given night, so he'll probably get you some scoring. Where Justin Hamilton, his value lies a little bit more in kind of that roto, well-rounded, doesn't make too many mistakes effort. So, for points league, I probably lean a little bit towards Sean Kilpatrick.
That's well put.
Is Nikola Mirotic in the doghouse, ... again? The answer to that one is a resounding yeah. I've been watching these Bulls games like a hawk because I have a lot of Chicago Bulls on my teams. I thought they'd be playing at a pretty high clip this year, so I went out and I banked on it a little bit, and Mirotic is on one of my fantasy teams, and he has looked very slow the last couple games for Chicago, and Fred Hoiberg just yanked him. If you're not moving with the flow, if you're not doing what you're supposed to, they threw Bobby Portis in there, who's not as good a player, but was hustling, and so that makes a big difference. There's a question actually a little bit farther down the chat room that says Mirotic was actually dropped in his league. Is he worth the pickup? He'd have to drop Justin Hamilton to get him. I actually think those guys are relatively evenly matched. I like Mirotic a little bit better because I think he will find his way out of the doghouse. This feels like sort of a short-term punishment just to kind of wake him up a little bit. But, Jordan, I watched a lot of the Bulls game tonight, again, just because I like to see how the guys that I have on my team are doing and if I need to be benching people or dropping them. And they need Mirotic in that lineup because there were long stretches tonight where Chicago probably should have pushed out in front of Atlanta, but they had 0 shooting on the floor. And it was awful because the guys got into the paint and they kicked out to guys at the 3-point line, and the Hawks were ready. They didn't bother closing out hard because they knew they didn't want to shoot, so they weren't leaving their feet. Atlanta played smart defense, forced the Bulls to just keep driving and kicking and driving and kicking, and eventually somebody like Rajon Rondo was firing a long-range shot and clanging it off the side of the backboard. To me, I think Mirotic is going to find his way back into the lineup. They need somebody that can space the floor, especially a tall fella that's not going to get his shot blocked. So, yes, he's in the doghouse. Yes, hang on to him for the time being. His upside is too good to let go. And yes, I think I'd take Mirotic over Justin Hamilton over the next couple of months. If Brooklyn starts to change the way they're playing this year, that statement could get flipped on its head, though. Jordan, I monologued a little bit there. What did I miss?
I think you're pretty accurate. When the Bulls have to put Isaiah long range cannon on the floor in order to get 3-point shooting, that something's going wrong for them. And they're gonna have to play him. That's just the way it is. And he's gonna have a lot more nights like this where he plays 11, 15 minutes. And, it looks ugly. But guess what? Dwayne Wade isn't going to be hitting 2 3-pointers every game. Jimmy Butler isn't going to be hitting four 3-pointers every game. They can't possibly keep Isaiah Cannon on the floor, and play 4 guard lineups and play defense at the same time. They're already a defensive struggling team. So Mirotic is as crazy good upside. The problem is he's just going to be massively inconsistent. Actually, when I wrote the article for third year players, any game that Mirotic plays over 30 minutes, he's basically a second round player. His averages are like 20 points and 10 rebounds and 3 threes. It's absolutely insane. And he's played that many minutes about 40 times in his career. You're going to have to just eat the bad games with him. And Justin Hamilton has nowhere near that kind of upside where he's going to be grabbing 10 boards and also getting steals and blocks, and big bursts. So you got to stick with Mirotic. You just got to know what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah, and feel free to bench him for the time being, but I wouldn't drop him. Just wait until he wakes up. He'll find his way out. He'll convince his coach that he's ready to go, or he'll make a big play. And he just looked lethargic out there tonight. I watched him very closely, and there was a reason that he didn't play very much. He got in, made a couple of free throws, committed a couple of dumb turnovers, and he was done. So bench him. Hold on, though, because like Jordan was saying, the upside is truly massive. And frankly, in watching that game again tonight, there was a reason the Bulls looked better when Isaiah Cannon was on the floor than Rajon Rondo. And it's not because Cannon's a better passer. That's for darn sure. But it's because they have to respect his ability to step out and hit a three-pointer. Whereas with Rondo, he was 2 for 10 from the floor tonight. And just an ugly game. And in Wade and Butler, guys that are not that comfortable stepping out. Now, Jimmy Butler had a really nice ball game tonight with 39 points, 4 boards, 7 assists, 4 3-pointers, and 6 steals. That's a huge one. But he's better going to the basket than he is at the 3-point line. So I don't know. I think you got to hold on tight. Atlanta, there was talk that maybe Kyle Korver would miss another ball game, but he did come back for this one. And the position battle is back on again because Korver had 11. Tim Hardaway had 11. Kent Bazemore, 3 points, 7 assists, sort of a weird ball game for Kent. Thabo Sefolosha got hot, made 8 out of 9 shots for 20 points, 3 steals and a block, and totally stole all of Bazemore's minutes. So the back and forth here with Atlanta, I got to tell you, Jordan, at the beginning of the year, my thought was, this will settle itself at some point. I'm starting to think that this might just be a timeshare for until somebody gets hurt.
Yeah, Kyle Korver's old. He's, 35, 36 years old now? I don't
know. Once 2.5 Men went off the air, I sort of lost track of what Kyle Korver was doing.
Yeah. Well, you can't scamper around out there for 30-plus minutes every single night. So this is going to happen. And for some reason, Budenholzer just doesn't like playing Bazemore over 30 minutes a game every single game. He basically oscillates between playing 34 and in the low 20s. And I feel like a broken record almost, because there are so many guys in that 60 to 120 range that put up great lines every other night and then are just absolutely crud the other nights.
It's weird. And
Ken Bazemore's among those.
Very weird. So anyway, we had a couple of questions on Mirotic. I figured we'd just talk about that ball game while we were covering Nikola. Next question on the docket. Do you think this was the breakout game for Dario? My opinion on that is no. I think that as with any young fella, you're going to have a couple stretches of strong numbers, and you're going to have some stretches of terrible inconsistency. So Just be ready. You know, the upside is there. They want to keep him active. They want to get him minutes over the course of the year, but it's not going to be smooth sailing. You know, it's not going to be like running a third or fourth round pick out there where you pretty much know what you're going to get on a nightly basis. There's a reason that you drafted him late with the hope that he could sort of hit some of that potential. So, short answer is no. Long answer is, I mean, kinda. Jordan, your thoughts on Dario's night?
Kinda too is what I would say as well. Yet again, Embiid was out for this game. He's rocking a 40% usage rate. So unfortunately, Dario isn't going to be attempting a ton of field goal attempts. He still only got 9 tonight, so it does give you kind of a glimpse of his upside, which is why I say kinda, because if you can score 14 points on 9 attempts and grab 12 rebounds, and that's great. And he picked up some blocks. So is it a bust out game? No, it's not. He's not going to like take off all of a sudden or anything. But he's definitely solid, and he was a good value for owners on draft day.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you on that one. The next question in the chat room actually takes us to a game we haven't covered yet, so I'm going to use that question to kind of segue into the basketball game. A couple, actually, I should say 2 games that it brings up some players. Miguel says, should he trade Clint Capella for Wes Matthews? He's looking to strengthen steals, threes, field goal, and free throw percentage. Well, I will say that 3 of those 4 categories you will strengthen quite a bit. In fact, steals, 3-pointers, and free throw percent, because Clint Capella, I think, was the worst in the league last year. But field goal percent, not right now. Wes Matthews has come out of the gates. He's been very, very cold. And he did not play tonight. He was rested against the Warriors. Rick Carlisle basically just threw that game into the toilet and said, "We'll get him on another day." I think anybody that's listened to some of my recent podcasts knows my feelings on Wes Matthews. So, Jordan, let's talk about the Houston San Antonio game, and let's talk about the Warriors Mavericks game. I guess we don't even need to talk about Warriors Mavs since Matthews isn't playing. We'll get to that a little bit later on. Starting with Wes Matthews. This is a guy that we know what he's capable of, but he's not shooting the ball well at all. Are you concerned? Because I'm not.
I'd say I actually am. At least as far as the shooting goes. If you're gonna be relying on him to not kill your field goal percentage, you're probably going to be sorely mistaken, because he's going to jack a ton of triples. And while I like him as a fantasy asset, he's going to absolutely murder your field goal percentage just like he did last year. And I don't think it's going to come back. I think the Achilles injury is going to continue to affect his offensive output and his ability to do that. Do I think he's on pure volume? Like he'll shoot 12 times a game and he'll still break double-digit scoring, and he'll still hit a couple 3-pointers, get you steals, and ship in elsewhere. But it's going to result in a guy who's going to hover around the 100 mark to me, because he's just, I don't think he's ever going to recover on that field goal percentage.
Now, last year he shot, I believe, 39%. He's at 29% so far this year. He, with Portland before the Achilles stuff, was at 45, 41, 44 twice, and then 45 again. Do you feel like there's a chance that he could get back up to around 40 this year? To me, 29 seems like it should regress upwards a little bit.
Oh, I absolutely. I think he'll still be able to shoot the 3 ball nicely, but I think if I actually have to take a quick look at it, but his ability to score inside of the arc is really what's hindering him. And on top of the fact that he's getting so much more volume from 3 land in the first place, which is just naturally going to drag down any player's field goal percentage.
Yeah, it's I think it ought to come back at least a little bit. 29 seems ungodly. So to me,
yeah.
In answer to this question, yes, I think I probably would trade Clint Capella for Wes Matthews.
I've actually got it pulled up here now, and I'm looking at his basketball reference. Wes Matthews, in his last year in Portland, shot 53% on his twos, 490 the year before that. Last year he shot 432, and this year he's shooting 359.
Yeah,
that's where the drag's coming from.
But that'll come back. I mean, 359, that'll come back a little bit. I would assume actually that his numbers might improve when he gets some better players around him again. The Mavericks are down Dirk, they're down Darren Williams, they're down Devin Harris, and then of course tonight they just rested everybody. But don't you feel like his looks should get a little bit better when Dirk is out there to space the floor and draw some attention, and when Darren Williams is able to run the point instead of somebody like Seth Curry or JJ Barea? So
absolutely, I think any Rick Carlisle offense is going to get his players good looks. I mean, especially Dirk makes a good offense out there just by standing around and being Dirk. So
I mean, I know he's hurt right now, but man, that guy he's really something. So to me, that's the word. If you're looking at Wes Matthews, he's not going to shoot 29%, but Jordan's right. He's probably not going to shoot 45% either. So, treat him a little bit like a Trevor Ariza type, like a Robert Covington type. Maybe less consistent than Ariza, but more consistent than Covington. And I hate guys like Capella that shoot 30 to 40% at the foul line, because on any given night a team could just decide to start wailing away on him, and then you're screwed.
That's a dangerous proposition for sure. It's a complete format thing. If you're in head to head, then go for having Clint Capella on your team, but I wouldn't be touching him in Roto.
Yeah. And so with that in mind, I think you do consider trading him for an asset that will weigh you down a little bit in field goal percentage, but you can certainly balance it out. And he's probably due to go on a little bit of a warm streak, maybe not piping hot, but that 29 will certainly get up into the high 30s, and maybe, just maybe, he can eke his way into the low 40s. So that in mind, we talked about Clint Capella a little bit in this discussion. He had 12 points and 5 rebounds tonight in just 18 minutes. Tends to get overshadowed a little bit when Houston is sort of spacing the floor and romping and running. And he lost a lot of his playing time tonight to kind of a weird combination of big power forwards, as it were, guys that you wouldn't call traditional centers, but they were probably playing the center position. And that's Ryan Anderson, who had a nice 20 and 8 game. Sam Decker actually played quite well for the Rockets off the bench this evening. 10 points, 7 rebounds, a steal, a block, and a couple of threes. Nene had 21 minutes off the bench. Didn't put up much in the statistical categories, but played sort of tough ball and certainly was made his presence known in that ball game. And as a result, you just didn't see the consistency for Capella in the minutes department. So to me, Jordan, that's just another reason that you want to flip him for a guy that when he's in there, and he got, again, a scheduled night off, but when he's playing, Wes Matthews is going to play 30 to 35 minutes a game.
Agreed. And I actually got to watch some of this game. I saw Ryan Anderson running around out there at center for a good few minutes, and I don't think that's an accident. If Mike D'Antoni feels like he can match up with them, match up with another team, and have Ryan Anderson's porous defense at center and just outscore the living daylights out of a matchup, he's going to do it.
Danny Green returned and had 4 steals and a block and 2 threes in this ball game. He didn't make a ton of his shots, just 3 for 9 from the field, but you got to be encouraged that this was game 1 for Danny. I mean, that's a great line, and that's exactly what you're hoping he gives you. Maybe hitting 1 more shot per ball game, but man, looking back to what Danny did last year, if he opened the season with 7 money counting stats, people would certainly have felt a lot better about him. I think you got to go get him right now.
I don't think he had a line that good until like March last year. It was with how brutal he was.
Believe me, I know I had him.
Yeah, I had him all year long too, and I kept waiting for the regression to hit, and it was one of those seasons where it never came, and that's the most just gut wrenching thing, just having to watch him do that to you every single night. But that's a great line. Jonathan Simmons has not been working out for them so hot, and they need Danny Green on the floor. So he's gonna play his 26 to 28 minutes, and pretty much those types of lines are what you can expect.
I think you may see a little bit of a tail off, of course, if they're not playing a team like the Rockets that really opens things up and turns the ball over 20 times a game, because that certainly favors his defensive stats. But again, very, very promising game for Danny Green coming right out of the chute, and kind of an ugly game for LaMarcus Aldridge. He got off to a quick start, but he hasn't looked that outstanding. The Kawhi Leonard train just keeps rumbling along, so no reason to get too much more deep into that one. He's just a good guy, and if you got him on your team, you're feeling okay about yourself right now. Alan Fang, this was, by the way, the reason that I got into Danny Green a little bit, because he says, would you rather have Danny Green or Sean Kilpatrick? And my answer to you, Alan, is it depends what kind of league you're in. Jordan, isn't Danny Green brilliantly tailored for a 9-category roto league, and Sean Kilpatrick is much more suited for an 8-category head-to-head league? It's like the battle of what type of fantasy environment you're in.
Yeah. It definitely gives Kilpatrick a boost, but I take Danny Green on either, to be honest, because Danny Green just offers so much versatility, and he does so many different things for your fantasy squad. And I'm not sure what I'm going to get out of Kilpatrick on a 9-to-9 basis. Given I'm not sure about Danny Green, but we've seen Danny Green's upside. It's in the top 40.
This we have an interesting question. Stick with me here and see if you can follow. This is a tough one to do on air, but we're going to do our best. Chiang says 11-team roto, 9-category. He has James Harden, Al Horford, Victor Oladipo, Avery Bradley, Darren Collison, Pau Gasol, Wes Matthews, Kent Bazemore, Jonas Valanciunas, Robert Covington, Matthew Dellavedova. Someone offered him Thad Young for Darren Collison. Should Chung make that trade? Now, I'm going to sort of pause the show here for a minute to once again go over the players on your team. James Harden, in looking at your guys, appears to be, and I guess Matthew Dellavedova would sort of fall into that category as well, the guys that could potentially get you assists. Thad Young is a rebounding guy. Let's see. You've got Horford. You've got Pau Gasol, who's not doing it right now. Valanciunas. I might consider doing this trade just because it looks like this team is a little weak on the glass. But in general, I think all things equal, I'd rather have Darren Collison than Thad Young.
Yeah, I lean slightly towards Darren Collison, but I think it's a perfectly reasonable trade, and I'd agree. He's got essentially like Covington and Powell playing power forward for him. It really lacks rebounding potential there, and that Young's perfect for that. And then that Young's going to get you steals too. So
yeah, that's again that team makeup that may be leaning us towards a yes. But if we didn't know everybody else on your team, I think in general you probably would prefer to have Darren Collison, just because again you're talking about a Kings team where he's going to be needed a lot. And with Thad Young, you're talking about a Pacers team where he's not needed quite as much. So, you've got a little bit more insurance, I guess, with Collison, that he's going to be actively involved every night. I mean, take tonight, for instance. Thad Young played 35 minutes, took 6 shots. He had 3 steals, which is nice, but 5 points and 5 rebounds. He just wasn't really involved. And that can happen on a night-to-night basis, where with Collison, I think you're going to see a pretty safe floor. And I always like having kind of that safe, decently high floor guy where maybe he's not going to blow up. Thad Young might have a couple of blow-up games, but I like the guys you can count on. I like Mr. Reliable in fantasy.
Agreed. In fact, I'd probably tell him, go search out before you pull the trigger on that deal. Go find a guy who is more of a power forward that can help you out on the boards, because Darren Collison's going to be a nice asset. He could easily be a top 50 player this year. So I would target somebody 660 or better. That's doing some work already.
Yeah, good point. You've got this asset in Collison. Don't just give him away for the first rebounding guy that comes in your direction. Toronto, Oklahoma City is one of the games that happened kind of in between the other ones we were talking about. And luckily, we don't have a whole lot to go over. Valanciunas sat out again, which, of course, opened up some minutes at the big guy spots in Toronto. So, yeah, you got a nice game from Lucas Nogueira, but He will once again kind of float by the wayside once Valanciunas is back. Patrick Patterson is starting to look a little bit more engaged. Is that intriguing you at all, Jordan? I mean, he took 11 shots tonight, which was kind of nice for two Pat. 13 points, 3 boards, 3 assists, 2 steals, and 3 3-pointers. If he can get you that night on a nightly basis, now you're talking about a guy worth adding. But do you trust him yet?
I'll never trust Patrick Patterson, but if he's going to play 33 minutes a night, I'll give him a shot to ride it out and hope for the
There's
best.
almost no competition for him there. Pascal Siakam is their starting power forward. You had to know that wouldn't last forever. I mean, he can still start, but Patterson doesn't have to do much to win the minutes at that spot. And it seems like now, after maybe a week and a half of them toying around a little bit, he's starting to show signs. He's on my watch list for me right now. I'm not picking him up yet, but he's kind of maybe falling into that. I think you and I maybe have even talked about it last week. I call him the one more time guys, where I'm going to actually watch the next Raptors game live. And if it looks like Patterson still is playing this hard and cares this much about actually getting engaged, then I might go grab him. And I'd like to see him do it when Valanciunas is healthy too, because Jonas is going to be a fixture on offense, even though they're kind of in different waves of players on that club. So anyway, Patterson is my one more time guy for the evening, I guess. Oklahoma City side, of course, another big game from Westbrook, 36-7-7. Didn't shoot the ball well, but got to the foul line 18 times. And Victor Oladipo actually had a decent ball game. 18 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, 5 3-pointers, and 2 steals. Little by little, Jordan, we're saying it every week, he's going to get a little bit better for this team. It's not going to be overnight, but every Wednesday, we'll probably look back at Oladipo and go, you know what, he's starting to get there. And this was a pretty nice ball game. 16 shots, too. That's another nice sign for him.
He's gonna keep creeping back up the rankings for sure as he gets more adapted to playing with Westbrook and handling the offensive load when Westbrook's off the floor. He'll continue to be better.
We got a question coming in from the chat room, a few actually, and we'll get to those in just a fraction of a moment. So sit tight with us. There's just one or two more games on the docket that we want to try to cover. Detroit was in Phoenix tonight, and Phoenix played well. They're starting to show some signs down there of kind of waking up a little bit. Pistons appeared to be distracted, and I know that I said that I wasn't going to get political in any way on this show, but Stan Van Gundy was one of the most political members of the NBA community coming out of that election last night, and I can't help but wonder, Jordan, if maybe this team was feeling like a lot of us, a little aimless going into today, of wondering what really is the future, and maybe their heads weren't in it. And as a result, you had a huge game from Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and not much defense for the Pistons tonight.
I think Tobias Harris might be going through an existential crisis right now, but beyond him, it was a pretty typical night outside of Kentavious, lighting up for three-pointer, which he's going to do occasionally.
The John Lure, 11 points and 9 rebounds. He's still kind of hanging on right on that fringe. Where do you put him in your rankings?
He's a guy I keep asking myself, should I add John Lure? Should I add John Lure? And every single night he keeps posting a halfway decent line. Stan Van Gundy loves him. And if he's going to keep doing it, he's going to force me to add him. Right now he's already the 79th overall player in nine cat this year. He's played 26 and a half minutes a game with averages of 10 points, a 3, 6.5 boards. But 50% from the field. That's pretty darn good.
Yeah, he's one of the more quiet, decent fantasy contributors so far this year. Phoenix side, it was Jared Dudley who woke up tonight. I mean, this is getting a little bit silly down there. Marquise Chris continues to start and will for the foreseeable future. We saw PJ Tucker get loose yesterday. He was quiet tonight. Chris was quiet again. Alex Len had a nice ball game with Tyson Chandler still out. Of course, our condolences to the Chandler family. I believe Tyson lost his mother, so that's hard, but he'll probably be back for Phoenix's next ball game. which makes the Alex Len experience here the last two nights. He'll likely be going back into about a 24-minute timeshare again. So, a nice streaming option there, but not a guy that you can really trust going forward. TJ Warren right now kind of slipping back into those old habits of scoring and not doing much else. And Eric Bledsoe is slipping into his much better habits of running the team, and they're better when he does so. Another really big ball game for Bledsoe. My thoughts on Phoenix, Jordan, and I'll keep them brief. I don't trust anybody really in that weird small forward battle. The Dudley, Chris, I guess you could call that a little bit of a power forward thing going on. You throw PJ Tucker into the mix as well. I'm just avoiding all of those guys right now.
I haven't gotten to opine about TJ Warren yet on this podcast, but man, I love me some TJ Warren this year. He got cut literally an hour before the first game lock of the season. Played 36 minutes that night. I immediately picked him up and have been riding him ever since. He's going to continue to be great this year, and I think all of his peripheral stats are going to continue to be rock solid. If you go and you look at the numbers and the nitty gritty when he actually got time over the last couple of years, he was able to support those peripheral stats. So I love him. I mean, poor Brandon Knight. He needs a trade.
Yes, he does. That guy's bounced around a little bit. I mean, he's not a bad basketball player. It's just he doesn't seem to be the right fit where he goes. Some team out there could use a guy like that. And at the top of my head, I don't know which one it is. Clippers destroyed the Portland Trail Blazers tonight, so I don't know if it's really worth getting into this one very much. Nobody really exceeded 25 minutes. If you had any of the Clippers or Blazers garbage time guys on your team, congratulations, because Shabazz Napier was the only member of the Portland Trail Blazers to crack double digits tonight. Yes, indeed, the winner of the Who is Your Least Likely Double-Digit Score, Shabazz Napier. I want to get like a little golf clap ready to go. Maurice Spates, double digits for the Clippers again. Man, that guy does not waste any time when he gets into the ball game. I have nothing that I want to say about this one. I have not a word. I've talked a lot about how much I like Al-Farouq Aminu, but he's out with that calf right now. So, if you got a roster spot to hang on to him, feel free. If you don't, I can't blame you. But otherwise, this game was a nothing for me.
Yeah. Chris Paul and Blake Griffin are still good at basketball. That's about all you need to know.
Yeah. Okay, wait a minute. You know what? Let's actually say one thing about the Clippers, because we're coming in here. We got about a 5-minute warning on this show, and I want to use it wisely. But their defense has really been impressive this year so far. I've watched a few of their games. They're not just slowing the game down to hold the score. The rotations are better, and it's really, I'm a little bit of a Blake Griffin hater, but he's been much, much better on defense this year. He's played a lot tougher.
Yeah, he's been great, and it's taken them 3 or 4 years now of this Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan pairing to really get down the rotations right. Because you watch those games, or used to at least, and they would constantly be messing up on their switches. Just not getting out on guys. Blake would have trouble getting out on guys because he would just be hanging too close into the paint, et cetera, et cetera. And now it's they're on a string, so to speak. And JJ Redick is an underrated defender. He plays really, really good team defense basketball. Chris Paul is the best, still for my money, the best point guard defender in the league. And you have that monster DeAndre Jordan in the middle. They're in DFS. They're a team to avoid.
Yeah, they're crushing teams right now. I'm really impressed. I thought that running all those same guys back out there another year was going to be a terrible decision, but they really look like they've taken a step forward. And it's not just that they're shooting the ball well right now; they're really defending teams. They shot 44% tonight, and they just annihilated the Portland Trail Blazers, who shot 35% from the field. It's not looking fluky right now. It's looking like this might be an actual change for this team. Now, Mavericks, this is, again, sort of a non-story because I will read you the list of 6 Mavericks who did not play tonight. Darren Williams, J.J. Barea, Devin Harris, Dirk Nowitzki, Andrew Bogut, and Wesley Matthews. So if you're looking at the Mavs box score and you're thinking, man, Dwight Powell had himself a night and Justin Anderson, man, almost a triple-double. What should I do? The answer is, please, Lord, don't do anything. Those guys are going to turn back into the pumpkins that they normally are as soon as the 6 Mavericks that didn't play in this ball game get back in. I mean, that's pretty much every minute on the floor that went to those other guys. So I don't think that I'd even need to pick your expert brain on that one. On the Warriors side, Klay Thompson's heating up. Kevin Durant is not cooling down. Draymond Green actually got in there and did a little bit more on the offensive side tonight. The assists were lower, but the scoring was higher. Warriors starting to click a little bit now. And for my money, Jordan, they still have a long way to go to get to where they can be. But the simple fact is they're already starting to look pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, it's a matter of, when, not if. And as they continue to get some time on the floor together, you'll see them improve all around. I mean, this is just the Miami Heat thing all over again. You need 40 games or so with a consistent starting lineup to really play really, really good team basketball. And we always seem to forget. The pundits always seem to forget, but it'll happen.
Interesting little side note on that game. All 4 members of the Big Four for the Warriors hit 4 3-pointers apiece. Durant, Green, Curry, Thompson combined for 16 threes, and they split them evenly. All right, let's lightning round this thing, Jordan, because we got about 2 minutes left on the show. Looking back at the question panel here, this is a longer one, I believe, but we'll get through it quickly. Alan says he has both Jokic and Nurkic on his 12-team head-to-head league. Should I just keep riding them, or should I look to move both of them, as it kind of seems like they'll be trading good nights between the two? Alan, my thoughts on that are going to echo those of Aaron Brewski. Mike Malone will figure this out. I would not sell Jokic right now. I would think about maybe selling Nurkic, because to me, he got off to that sort of gangbusters start, but no, I wouldn't just dump them for whatever you can get. I think that they're both going to be decent as the season goes on, and I think Jokic has more room for improvement. Jordan, what are your thoughts on those two guys?
I think you should keep both of them. I like that he has both of them, and he can just start them and not have to worry about their inconsistent. One of them having inconsistencies on any given night, because they'll both have very large games together. They'll both have games where they both struggle together, and there will be games where they trade off, and for those games where they trade off, it'll be a really nice line for one guy and a really poor line for the other. So I like having that little safety net there. I like the same thing happens in Boston too. If you can own like Isaiah Thomas and Avery Bradley at the same time, it's a beautiful thing, because if either one of them misses any amount of time, the other's just playing 39 minutes a night and absolutely soaking up every single backcourt shot. So I feel that's the same way there.
So let's take about 20 seconds on each of the next 3 questions, and then we're putting a stamp on this bad boy. Aaron is looking to potentially make a move with the waiver wire, but he wants to know if it's worth it. He has Rondae Hollis-Jefferson and he has Tyson Chandler on his team, wondering if he should go and pick up any of the following guys: Justin Hamilton, Seth Curry, Mo Harkless, or Tyus Jones. Dropping again, the drops would be Rondae Hollis-Jefferson or Tyson Chandler. I'm inclined to say keep the guys you got. But to me, if you were going to drop either of them, it would probably be Chandler, because he's bound to miss more games. And the pickup right now among those guys available would probably be Mo Harkless, because he seems to be stepping up. But I'm leaning towards just keeping the guys you got.
Yeah, keep those guys. Their upside's way higher. I know Rondae Hollis-Jefferson's been very irritating to own so far, but he'll get better, especially as we wear on it into the season.
Oh, he also added in an additional post that John Lure is also available on the wire. That actually does change things a little bit. I might think about getting Lure instead of Tyson Chandler, just for the more interesting stat set, but it's a little bit of a wash there for me. I think I'm still sticking with the guys he's got.
Yeah, I would be inclined to do so too, but I wouldn't blame you if you cut either of them to go out there and grab Lure. he's been pretty good, and Stanman Gundy's rotations, rock solid.
Yeah.
I was actually going to mention this earlier, but another good reason to own John Lure in the first place is he's already producing, and if anybody gets hurt there, he's going to start playing 34 minutes a night.
Yeah, Stan likes him, and Stan tends to give his guys minutes, so that's kind of nice. Should I trade Andrew Wiggins for Marc Gasol? This is an interesting one, actually, because to me, Marc Gasol's the better fantasy player, but he's also the greater injury risk. So how does that scale of justice, Jordan, where do you sit with that potential swap?
A lot of people were pumping Wiggins as this being his breakout year, and his peripheral stats are still not being supported. I think they will be to more of an extent. Like he's gonna get back to a steal a game, and he is hitting threes this year. So I think he will be a lot better than what he's been now. I think it's a dead even trade, to be honest. And I'd actually lean Wiggins just because, like you said, Marc Gasol's foot injury, he's going to get rested some, and on top of it, he's going to continue to play more limited minutes when he is on the floor. He's playing 32 right now. That isn't going to happen for the rest of the season. Not with the amount of weight that he carries, and not on that foot.
Yeah, health does make that a little bit scary. Was offered CJ McCollum for my D'Angelo Russell is this other trade. Which side do you prefer on that one? I'd go McCollum over D'Angelo.
So McCollum, lock that in. That's a great trade. D'Angelo Russell's ceiling for the season would be CJ McCollum wherever he is right now in the 40s or in the 30s or whatever it is.
Go take advantage of that, Laker fan, Mark, and get CJ McCollum. Last question. Do you believe that Steven Adams' free throw percent will stay as high as it is right now? It's up quite a bit from last year.
No. Free throws are one of those things that will regress.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure I want to make sure that you got a chance to answer that one before I did, because you, my friend, you're analyzing stats on a daily basis, and that question had stats analysis written all over it. But yes, I will get behind you on that assessment. No, it's not staying up. Luckily, it doesn't take that many, so probably won't hurt you once it does start to drop back a little bit. If you got a question, ladies and gents, get it in right now, because we are wrapping things up as we speak. The hour mark has come upon us, and Fantasy NBA tonight is just about done. Big 11-game card in the books. Folks, again, remember, you have 2 more of these programs for free. Our live YouTube post-game analysis. Vince will be with you tomorrow night at 9 o'clock Pacific time. That'll be with John Sill. Eric Ong, our newest member of Hoop Ball, will join Vince on Friday evening. If you want to listen to Fantasy NBA Today, that's the show that I'm usually in charge of. Vince and I will actually be doing our live Thursday show at 11 o'clock tomorrow morning. And that one, by the way, will stay a live YouTube show for free forever. So that's coming up in just about half a day from now. Jordan, thanks so much for joining us here on this Wednesday night.
Not a problem.
We did get one last question sneaking in right before the closing bell. Should I stick with Patty Mills for the rest of the week?
Sure. He's going to play, and it'll be better than he was the other night. And I actually didn't see his line from tonight, but it's
pretty good tonight. 8 points, 10 assists.
He'll be solid. And to follow up on Mark D's hesitance on pulling off that CJ McCollum trade. D'Angelo Russell doesn't get that many assists, so I think you're safe there. CJ McCollum's gonna not gonna have that much less, and if you're that worried about it, go search out the trade market a little bit more for a guy who does get them.
Yeah, you know what? At this point, make the trade for McCollum, and then feel free to go flip him for something else. Because you're getting a better player, which means that you can then trade for a different, better player. So, take advantage of the guy who wants your guy right now. And then, you'll find somebody who wants McCollum. I'd take him. And a lot of people would, because he's a pretty good basketball player and a really nice fantasy asset. That now officially the end of the line. Thanks for all the questions tonight, everybody. Really appreciated you having here in the live chat room. For Jordan Smith, I'm Dan Besbris. This was Fantasy NBA Tonight. Again, I'll be back with you with Vince tomorrow at 11 a.m. right back here on the YouTube channel with Fantasy NBA Today. We'll once again review some of these Wednesday games, pick Vince's brain because I haven't talked to him in a week, and then we'll take a look at some of the NBA on TNT games coming up as well. Check out Hoopball Tweets. That's the Twitter handle of our website, hoop-ball.com. I am at Dan Besbris on Twitter. He is at jsmithkchoops on Twitter. You can seek us out and ask any additional questions there. Again, thanks so much for joining us on this Wednesday night, and we'll catch up with you very soon. This was a Hoopball presentation. So long, everybody.